we were sort of almost by happenstance gifted a session with a medium. And that really changed things for me because, first of all, I wasn't even sure about the medium kind of session because I am a scientist. I have a doctorate in biostatistics and epidemiology. But when I got in there and she explained some things to us, and then he came through and was communicating with her, he was fine. He was full of love and bliss and doing quite well. And that helped me to know that he was okay because, we never stop worrying about our children, even if they die, right?
Dr. Cindy Girman has a doctorate in biostatistics and epidemiology. She's a rigorous scientist, used to quantifying and analyzing data. But when her son died, she experienced a connection that was not in any way measurable. It was spiritual. With her deceased son, Alec, she co-wrote a book, A Voice from Heaven, which is available on Amazon. As she wrote, Alec's thoughts flowed through her, and she gained insight into his journey beyond this world. This is a story about love and trust. It's a story about how our worldview may be challenged and changed, and how that in turn changes us. Cindy, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Thank you for having me, Pat. My bump in the road was we lost our son in October of 2021. He died at the age of 22 of kratom toxicity, which is an unregulated product that's on the market that at low doses acts sort of like a stimulant, gives you some energy, but at high doses can have some adverse effects. He had been in recovery for 20 months, and it was a real shock to us. He had planned to visit for the weekend, and when my husband went to pick him up, his door was deadlocked, and he had to call the police and firemen to break down the door, and they found him. I was completely devastated. So was my husband. Losing a child is just something that you never wish on anyone. For months I was like in a fog, just kind of going through the motions of living. I can't even hardly remember what happened during that time. I guess this is about 4 months after his death, we were sort of almost by happenstance gifted a session with a medium. And that really changed things for me because, first of all, I wasn't even sure about the medium kind of session because I am a scientist. I have a doctorate in biostatistics and epidemiology. But when I got in there and she explained some things to us, and then he came through and was communicating with her, he was fine. He was full of love and bliss and doing quite well. And that helped me to know that he was okay because, we never stop worrying about our children, even if they die, right? I was worried that he was lost in the ether because he had some challenges when he was alive. He had ADHD and high functioning autism, what was used to be called Asperger's. So I was always worried about whether he would find his way or, get lost, or if he was getting what the assignment that he was supposed to be doing. And that didn't even stop after he died. But it helped to know that he was happy, that he was full of love. He was fully forgiven. He had no regrets, and that things were going well for him. It really helped me a lot to understand that. But I was still in grief. Of course, you still miss your son. And that's just a testament of the love that you have for them. Um, at one point, a few months later, I told my husband, um, I don't, I don't know if I want to go on anymore. I want to go and be with, I just want to go be with Alec and my dad. And that was the low point of my grief journey. Um, but about the first year anniversary of his death, I was really struggling because that's a really hard time. Um, whenever you've lost someone close to you. So I visited another medium, and um, she brought Alec through, and I had been toying with the idea of writing a book, and she communicated to me that I should not only write the book, but I should write it in 6 weeks. And I was like, whoa, that's not a very short time to write a book. And that I should write it in his voice, that I should let his voice be heard from heaven. And I was like, how in the world would I ever do that? But she gave me the specific steps to go through, to sit down with full intention to co-write with him. And we co-wrote a book called A Voice from Heaven, From Earthly Struggles to Thriving in the Afterlife. And he is actually the first author because most of the words in the book are his.
Now, what were your spiritual beliefs like before Alec died and after?
Yeah, so I was raised a Methodist, so I believed that there was a God and I believed in Jesus, but I also had a scientific side where, you know, many scientists have a skepticism of whether there is an afterlife or if there is an afterlife, you know, what it's like. Um, I was completely blown away by what he was communicating to me during the writing of this book. And it really made my views much stronger. There is a God. He's all about love. There is a heaven. There is an afterlife. And evidently it is wonderful. Um, there, you know, I always believed that there was a heaven, and if you sinned, that you went to hell. And uh, I am now convinced that God is all about love. God does not judge us. God would never, you know, send someone to hell um, for an eternity of torture. He couldn't do that and be all about love. So my spiritual views have really changed, and in terms of my religious views, but also in terms of spirituality and being able to connect um, with with those who have passed on before us.
One of the things I think Alex said to you was that it was his time to go. He'd learned what he needed to learn. Are you comfortable with the idea that it's one's time to go?
Yeah, I wasn't before. I know that some people do believe that your life is sort of preordained, but I wasn't one of those. But he did convince me through various communications and conversations with him that uh, you know, every one of us has a purpose on in our physical life. We are spiritual beings living a physical life in order to learn how to be more compassionate, loving, and forgiving. And his purpose was to learn how to be more forgiving and compassionate with those who use drugs and those who have a dependence on substances. And his life's purpose was done at 22. He had done that. He had had that experience, and it was time for him to go and do other things.
Was part of his reason for being here to teach you something, do you think?
I believe that. Yes, I believe that I needed to also learn how to be more forgiving and compassionate uh, with those who have certain conditions. He had, as I mentioned, he had ADHD and high functioning autism. Those were some challenges that we as a family faced, and also the addiction. Addiction is a very difficult thing to deal with as a family.
What were some of the things you dealt with Alex's excuse me, addiction?
Ah, What was there not? You know, it's, I don't mean to make light of it. It's really a disease, and it's really beyond the control of people who are truly dependent. Um, uh, we would find things, but we were sort of in denial um, of that it was a big problem. We were thinking, oh, he's just experimenting. He'll get over it. We'll talk to him. We'll send him to a counselor. Unless someone is really wanting to change, none of those things are going to work. They almost have to hit a time in their life where things are so low that they really want to get out of that whole situation, and then they really want to get better, and that's what it takes. You can talk until you're blue in the face with a family member who has dependence, and unless they are willing to listen and really wanting to change, it's probably not going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, you talk about compassion, and I think we should all practice compassion. Easier said than done.
Yes.
You meet somebody and they look perfect or they have the quote unquote seemingly perfect life, and it doesn't even occur to you that that's not reality. Everybody's dealing with something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ho-
Everybody is dealing with something, and I think sometimes when people react to small things, it's really they're reacting to what's going on in their lives that is difficult to cope with.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I try to remember that. It's hard for us to remember that, but you're right, everybody's dealing with something.
Yeah, and the reactions aren't personal, but they feel personal. And you have to have the presence of mind to stop and say, okay, this is this person's behavioral pattern. It's not about me. I had
Right.
a situation not too long ago where I was essentially stabbed in the back, the knife was twisted, and the rug was pulled out from underneath me.
Oh,
Yeah, really.
yeah.
Well, we've all been there numerous times after a while.
Right,
But
right.
I realized it was this person's behavioral pattern. This is how he was totally unaware of it.
Mm,
And I think being able to see that helped it changed the course of some things I was doing pretty significantly, but I think that also helped me not take it too personally.
yeah, yeah. Because you're right, it's not about you. It really is about whatever that person is dealing with. I mean, perhaps he should understand that how he is coming off to other people, um, but yeah, he's probably dealing with something really tumultuous in his life.
But for him or anyone to understand that, they would have to be somewhat aware,
Yeah,
somewhat conscious to be able to look at their own behavior, and you you can't make people aware, and we're all unaware sometimes, but you
right.
can't force that on somebody. They have to be willing to stop and be curious about kind of their own inner workings.
Hmm. That's right. And to be patient and understanding. Yeah.
Oh,
Which
patience. I am on this earth to learn patience.
me too. Me too. I am. I truly am. But I think sometimes people don't realize how they're coming across, and they may come across very badly or poorly. But it they you just have no idea what they're dealing with. Yeah. So I'm trying to remember that it's hard.
It is. There's a quote in your book I just love. Life is not happening to you. Life is to be experienced by you.
Yes. Alec told me that basically in the writing sessions that we had every morning for about 8 weeks. He told me that several times, and to make like life happen for you, not to just sit back and let it happen to you. I think that really has become a mantra of mine to really kind of grab life by its handles and say, "Hey, where are we going today? What are we doing here?" Because we only live this particular life once, and the time that we're here is very, very short. So we really shouldn't. Sometimes I certainly felt before the writing of the book that a lot of times I went through the motions. I'd get up and I had my routine, and we all fall into that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying now to be more aware of myself doing that. To take a second and look outside, walk outside, put my feet in the grass, something to connect with nature and to really think about what I'm doing that day.
Yeah, I think connecting with nature personally is really important. It puts you in perspective. We're so small relative to the grandeur of nature, and that creates both awe and a sense of smallness and greatness all simultaneously.
All at
What are
once. Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. How do you better engage with your life on a daily basis? What else can we do?
I think just being conscious of what we're doing. I mean, like I said, those days that you get up and you go through the motions and you're in this routine and you sort of lose yourself in that routine and you're not hardly even thinking. Um, Stepping back and really being aware, I think, is the biggest thing in my mind. Just being aware of what we're doing, what's going on around us, nature, how beautiful it is. Take a second to stop and smell the roses, right?
Yeah, I think introducing incremental change, which is much sounds much easier than it is. But for example, this morning I had to be somewhere at before 7. So it disrupted my normal morning routine. It was great. It made me really realize, okay, it's getting warm. I usually walk in the afternoon. You need to get up. I get up at 4:45 anyway. Just get up and get going. And I think that those appreciating those interruptions to your routine can really work for your benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to integrate meditation into my morning routine, and I'm not a morning person, so it's been difficult for me to do that. But I think even this afternoon, I had time between a couple of meetings, and I sat down and meditated, and it just when I went back to my desk to work, I was just so much more focused and so much calmer. So I know that I need to be doing that several times a day, really.
There's an old saying in the meditation community, if you, don't have an hour to meditate, you should meditate for 2.
that's that's a good one. Yeah,
Isn't that good?
absolutely. That's really good.
What are some of the things you learned writing this book with
Oh,
Alec?
there was so much. I learned a lot about the afterlife and the journey into the afterlife. He explained everything to me. He took me on his journey with him. Like he took me step by step through the tunnel, which was not really a tunnel, it was like swirling light that was cylindrical. And then he was met by ancestors and relatives who had passed, and with warmth and love and forgiveness and compassion. And they guided him on a path. He went through a light bath to cleanse him of uh, some of the hurt and anguish that he had in his physical life. He had some challenges. And then he went on to a life review. And, I've always heard people talk about how your life flashes by you. This was a little different. He described to me that he met with his spirit guide and they revisited every single decision that he had ever made in his lifetime. And I was like, how in the world?
That's
It would take a
mind-boggling.
yeah, how in the world? There's so many decisions that we make every day. And even not making a decision sometimes is a decision, right? So he explained to me that it's not like our lifetime can be kind of, because they have infinite dimensions, they can see the past, present, and future all at the same time. They can see many, many different times and decisions at the same time. And so it doesn't take a whole lifetime to have that. And they could do it very quickly. But not only did they revisit all of the decisions that he made and what the impact was on other people, because that's how I think that the judgment comes in. You are your own judge. And the way that you are your own judge is that you experience the emotional impact that you had on other people with every decision that you and every decision that you even didn't make. And so I think that's where the sort of judgment comes in, with, and we are our own worst critics, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
I don't
We
know if
live
that's
in a
judgment as much as experience and awareness,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
though I dread that.
Yeah. Yeah, now that I'm aware, of that, I'm thinking about every decision a little bit more.
One of
Um,
the things I found really fascinating was that Alec told you that he was in touch with kind of multiple generations going back through various family trees and connections. What was that about?
yeah, so, yeah, he explained that, as spirits, they hang out in different soul groups, many different soul groups. So some of those soul groups were past ancestors that had lived. Some of those soul groups were more current relatives that he had known in his physical life. Other soul groups were friends and people that he had known throughout the different lives that he had lived here in physical form. So it's very interesting because you can be part of many different soul groups from many different times, in since the beginning of time. It is mind-boggling, and now I want to go back and learn about quantum physics, because there is no time and space in heaven, and you can see the past, present, and future, and it just makes my brain blow up like that emoji.
Well, if we have free choice, how can we see our future when we're at that moment of decision? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, I I haven't figured that one out yet. I'll let you know if I ever
Please.
do. But I do think that people that can have the gift of being able to be in both realms, I do believe that they can see the future. They can be in different dimensions, if you will. Um, but I am not there. Unfortunately, and in fact, I can't hear Alec. The way that they communicate in heaven is through thought. So what I was getting when I was writing the book was his thoughts in my mind, and they don't come just all the time. I have to. My gift is that I can sit down with full intention of writing with him and put a plea into both our spirit guides and to Alec to be present. And then we can communicate. But that's the only way that I've figured out. I'm hoping to learn how to be able to communicate with him, just at any time.
What advice would you have for other parents losing who lose a child, particularly to addiction?
Ah, it's so hard. It is a very difficult journey. Um, the During their physical lives, I think all you can do is to love them and support them where you can, but not condone their behavior. And I say behavior, um, because it really is a disease, and it takes over them, and so we still love them as a human. We still love that their person. It's the disease that we do not like. For people that have lost uh, close loved ones to addiction, um, and I know for me, I would like, part of this experience made me want to help others, and particularly those that are in the throes of and struggles of dependency. And I am donating 50% of the proceeds from the book to research on better treatments for addiction. In fact, it's a technology as opposed to a pharmaceutical product that will hopefully help to treat addiction. And I'm also starting a nonprofit to try to raise money for scholarships for people that want to go into recovery and are really committed, because residential programs for addiction are so incredibly expensive. And a lot of people that really want to go into recovery can't because of the financial costs.
If you could rewrite your story with your son, all the years and time you spent together, would you?
That's really a hard question. Um, I, I always have sometimes the going back and saying, well, if I had only done that, or if I'd only done this, or if I'd have caught that earlier, or if I'd had that talk to him earlier, um, maybe it would have made a difference. But in the end, I have to accept that he lived his purpose. He was here living his purpose that he had decided upon before he incarnated in his physical form. And so, I think that I have to accept that that we did as much as we could as parents, and that, nothing would have made any difference really, because that was the life that he was supposed to live. And it was supposed to be a short life, because he could learn it in 22 years. So I think I have to not say that I wouldn't change anything, but maybe just love him even more than I did.